چون سزای این بت نفس او نداد از بت نفسش بتی دیگر بزاد. He says, in as much he did not give punishment to this idol of his nafs, i.e. this king never gave punishment to this fire of this nafs, he started punishing everyone else around him. Right? When you don't punish your own nafs, when you don't go through that mujahada of your nafs, then what happens? You cause dhulm on other people in this world. Right? This is one of the secrets of Islam, is that Allah is teaching us in the Quran that when you handle your tazkiyah, when you handle your self-purification, you will stop oppression of other people. And that's why, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. That if you solve the oppression of your heart that you commit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you solve the oppression of your nafs, that will automatically limit the oppression of this world. Allah also says in the Quran, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. That salah, prayer itself, prevents vile acts in this world. Right? That when you pray salah, you are creating this tazkiyah within yourself. مادر بتها بت نفس شماست. مادر بتها بت نفس شماست. زآنکه بت ماد و این بت اژدهاست. The idol of your nafs is the mother of all idols. That you've solved, you stopped worshipping But and Uzza, but if you stopped worshipping the idol of your own self, this great Punjabi poet Bulleh Shah, who was, they called him the Rūmī in Punjabi. They said, what did he say? Alim Fazil Hoya, Hazaran Kitaba, Pariya Apnu Apnu Pariya Nahi. That you've become an alim, a fadl, you've read 1,000 books, but you've never read your own self. You fought with everyone, Apnu Apnu Lariya Nahi. You fought with shaitan all day, but you never fought with your own self. Right? This is the true, jihad. Ahanu sangas nafs wa but sharad. On sharad as all mi girat qarad. The nafs is iron and stone, while the idol is the sparks. But the sparks are quieted by water, right? So your nafs is the iron, and your nafs and the idol is the sparks. But you need to put water on it. Sango ahan zaab ki sakin shavad, adami ba'in doki ayman shavad. How should the stone and iron be cured by water? How should a man, even though he has the stone and this iron of his nafs, be cured? But siyah abast dar kuzay nihan nafs mar ab siyah ra chashme dan. The idol is the black water in a jug. The nafs is a fountain for the black water. So you have to stop this fountain here. Sad sabura bashikan yakpara sang wa ab chashme mezahanat beidaran. A single piece of stone will break 100 pitchers, but the fountain is jetting forth water constantly. Right? That you're trying to bake your nafs with one stone, but your fountain is constantly, the fountain of your nafs is constantly pouring out. Surat nafsra bajui a pisa qissa a dozak bakhan a bahaf dal. O son, if you seek the form of the self, read the story of hell with its 7 gates. And then he says, Dar khudai Musa wa Musa gurez, ab iman ra za fir'auni marez. Flee to the God of Moses and to Moses. Do not from the quality of Fir'aun spill water on the faithful. Dastra andar ahad wa ahmad bazan. A brother Abu Jahal tan. Lay your hand on Ahad and Ahmad, O brother, escape from the Abu Jahl of the body. Right? As if Paul said, Ba Mustafa barisan khishra kidi hamaus agar una rasidi tamam bula habis. That make your whole self, make your whole nafs reach Mustafa. Because the entire deen is him. If you can't reach him, everything else is Abu Lahab. So now, what happened, right? You had the king, he set up this idol, and he set up a fire, right? And he said, if you don't prostrate to the idol, you'll be thrown into the fire. So now what happened? Yak zani ba tifl awar on juhud pishi an but wa atish andar shu'la bud. Then a woman came with her child. Right, a 2-3-year-old child, and the fire was andar shu'la, it was blazing. Tifl az u bastad dar atish dar fikan zan batarsid wa dil az iman bakan. The king took the child from the mother and cast the child into the fire. Right, and the woman was so afraid that she withdrew her heart from iman, because now it was like, what's the point? I just lost my child. Let me also throw myself into the fire too. خواست تا او سجده آرد پیش بت بانگ زد آن طفل انی لم امت. She was about to bow down before the idol, right? Because again, you had two choices. Either you bow down before the idol or you step into the fire. And the king took the child and threw it into the fire. And she herself was about to bow down before the idol so she could be saved. And what happened? Bang zad an tifl inni lam amat. Then the child screamed out, I haven't died yet. Inni lam amat. I haven't died. Andar a ay madar inja man khusham. اندر آ ای مادر اینجا من خوشم گرچه در صورت میان آتشم. Come in, O mother, I am living in joy. The child is in the fire. He says, come in, O mother, I'm living in joy. Although in appearance, I'm in the fire. This is, a wild say. چشم بند از آتش از بحر حجاب. رحمت است این سر بر آورده ز. This should be زجیب. The fire is a spell that binds the eye for the sake of screening. This is a divine mercy which has raised its head from its jade, from its pocket, from its collar. Andar a madar babin burhan haq. Andar a madar babin burhan haq. Ta babini ishrate khasan haq. Come in, O mother, into the fire and see the proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that you may behold the what? The ishra, the delight of the elect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the khasan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Andar a وآب بین آتش مثال از جهان که آتش از آبش مثال. Come in and see the water that has a semblance of fire. Right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obviously the creator of everything, and Mawlānā Rūmī is taking from this ayah, right? قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. O fire, be cool in light upon Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the child says, come in and see the water that has the semblance of fire. As jahani ka atishash abish misal, from a word, this whole world which is fire, but it has a semblance of water, right? You think this, you want this world, you want this dunya, and it has a semblance of water, but although it actually is fire, but this fire that I'm in, it looks like fire, but it's actually ab, it's actually water, right? And this is the sort of contradiction that we live in as human beings. Andar a asrari Ibrahim bin. Andar a asrari Ibrahim bin, ke u dar atish yaf sar yasamin. Come in and see the mysteries of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? And this Mawlānā Rūmī is trying to make a larger example of your nafs, right? That when you burn your nafs, you will find khushhali. And although burning your nafs hurts, mujahada hurts, who said it was easy? That's why, Mawlānā Rūmī in other places, that to be a Muslim is that you're constantly brokenhearted. That the way of Islam, the way of Iman, the way of the deen is not for the people who want to live with joy in this world. This is, Islam in this world is you're constantly brokenhearted. That's why, the Sufis would say that, the point of tasawwuf, the point of Sufism is not the ahwal, is not the states. The point is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Whether you feel in joy, whether you feel in grief, it shouldn't matter. It should just whether you're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's why, someone came up to Abdullah Ansari of Herat and he said, I've been praying tahajjud all night long. I've been fasting all day long. I keep fast Monday and Thursday. But, I read these stories of the Sufis, they would fly in the sky. How come I'm not flying in the sky? Right? I thought the whole point of doing all this ibadah is that you get karamat, you get miracles. How come I'm not flying in the sky? And then Abdullah Ansari of Herat, he said, Agar hava pari magasi bashi. If you fly in the sky, you're just a fly. You're just like a small the insects also fly in the sky. Agar abravi khasi bashi. And if you can swim in the water, so what? You're a khasi. How would you translate khasi?
Khas is like a small piece of wood on top.
Like you're, that small piece of driftwood that floats in the water? He's like, so what? That also drifts in the water. Dil badastar ta kasi bashi. Make someone's heart so you can be someone. Dil badastar ta kasi bashi. This is, the idea of all of this, right? So what Mawlānā Rūmī is saying is that, although the dunya looks like water, it is actually fire. And although the Islam, what did the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wasalam? حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ وَحُفَّتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. That paradise is surrounded by challenges, and Jahannam is surrounded by ease, asudigi. Right? And so that Mawlānā Rūmī wants all of us to be reminded of the fact that if you can see through the delusion, if you can see through the delusion of the world, then you can actually experience this cool water, this water. Right? What does Allah say in the Quran? Ya ayyuhal insanu ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. Oh insan, what has deluded you from the most generous Lord? What has deluded you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So how do you escape this delusion? And that's what the Quran is coming to teach you. How can you and I escape this delusion? That here you have the idol and here you have the fire. Right? And many people would say it's easy. I'm going to save my life and bow down towards the idol. Right? I'm living in the world. That's what they say, hey, brother. You live in the world, be in the world. Don't worry about this or that. Islam is, simple. Don't worry about fiqh. Don't worry about this. Just do what you feel right. This is the easy way out. But the challenge is to step into the fire, right? And that's mujahada. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّكُمْ سُبُلَنَا. That those who strive, those who are broken-hearted, those who are shikasta dil in our path, لَنَهْدِيَنَّكُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will show you many, many roads. Not just, Allah didn't say لَنَهْدِيَنَّكُمْ سَبِيلَنَا. Allah said لَنَهْدِيَنَّكُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will show you many, many roads. So anyways, the child is telling the mother, he's sitting in the fire, Asrar Ibrahim Babin, come and see the secrets of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Marg me didam gahe zadan zetu, sakht khofan bud uftadan zetu. I was seeing death at the time of birth from you, and my dread was falling from you. Right? This idea, when you're born into this world, you're crying. Chun bazadam rastam az zandan tan dar jahan khosh havai khub ran. When I was born, I escaped from the narrow prison into a world of pleasant air and beautiful color. Right? That when you're in the womb, it's a very narrow and confined place. You come into this world. It's khosh hawa, right? It's beautiful air. It's pleasant smells, pleasant sights, etc. Man jahan ra chun raham didam kunun. But he's like, now that I'm living in this world, I feel like this world is a tight and narrow place. This world is like the womb, right? And chun darin atish badidam in sukun. Sorry, it should be nadidam darin sukun. And in this fire of this dunya, I have not seen any sukun. That when I left the womb of my mother, I thought there would be sukun in this world. But as soon as I landed in this world, I haven't experienced any type of sukun. Andar in atish badidam alami, chun darin atish badidam in sukun. In this fire, I have seen a world where every atom possesses the breath of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. Nak jahani shakl has zat, wa an jahani has shakl be sabat. A world that is non-existent is essentially existent. He's talking about, obviously, sort of the other realms. And while a world that is apparently existent has no permanence, the fact that you can see and touch this world shows that this world cannot be everlasting. Again, because of the fact that you can see and touch this world, because it has some type of appearance to you, this means this world can never be everlasting. Andar madar bahaqqi madari. Andar madar bahaqqi madari, bin ke azar nadarad azari. He says, come, the child is saying to the mother, oh mother, come in by the right of motherhood. Come in, oh mother, by the right of motherhood. Come in, oh mother. See how this fire, it has no flames. Right? And that's the idea, that if you burn your nafs, you will not experience any flames. You won't experience any real pain. And that's why Allah says, in the Quran, Allah inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. That why is it such that Allah says that the friends of Allah have no khawf and they never grieve, that they don't fear and they don't grieve? Because they have detached their nafs from the fire of this world, right? They have detached their nafs from the fire of this world. Andar amadar ke iqbal amadast. Andar amadar ke iqbal amadast. Andar amadar madah dawlat zadast. Madah dawlat zadast. Come in, O mother, for felicity itself has come. Come into the fire, for felicity itself has come. That when you come onto this path, when you come onto this path of, of mujahada, of fighting your nafs, of challenging your nafs, of overcoming your nafs, that is true iqbal, that is true fortune. Come in, O mother, don't let fortune slip from your hand. This is an opportunity, right? Qudrate ansag badidi andar, ta babini qudrat u latf qudar. Khuda, come, you have seen the power of that dog, right? I.e. the dog of this world, of this sag of this world. Come in so that you may see the power of Allah's grace, of the lutf khuda, of the generosity, of the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And that's why only when you make it to the other side of the bridge, can you explain what that path is, what crossing, that very difficult journey is. Manzar rahmat mein kashanam payitu. Manzar rahmat mein kashanam payitu. Kas taraf khud nistam parvayitu. It is out of rahmah, it is out of mercy that I'm drawing your feet. That, oh mother, that I want you to come into the fire with me. For indeed, that is such my rapture that I have no care for you. Andar aw wa digaran ra ham bakhan. Andar aw wa digaran ra ham bakhan ka andar atish shab banahada ast khan. Come in and call others to jump into the fire too. Right? Don't bow towards the idol. Come in and jump into the fire too. For the king, i.e. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has spread a table within the fire. Andar ayid ay musalmana hama. Andar ayid ay musalmana hama. Ghair az bidin azabast on hama. O true believers, come in all of you. Except for the sweetness, and he's making a play. So in Arabic you have adab, which means punishment, and ad, which means sweetness. So Mawlānā Rūmī is making a play on these two Arabic words. Ghair az bidin azabast on hama. Except for the sweetness that I'm experiencing in this fire, everything else is azab. Except for the sweetness of challenging your nafs, everything else is azab. Although you might see it or sort of perceive it to be sweetness, it's actually azab for you. Andar ayid ay hama parvana awar. Andar in bahra ki darad sad bahar. Come in all of you like moths, because what do moths do? They all crowd around the flame, right? And their nature is drawing them to that flame. So this is almost like a three-layer analogy, right? So now, first he has the fire and the idol, then human beings coming into the fire. Now moths being drawn towards the flame, that our fitrah is pulling us towards this mujahadat al-nafs. Our fitrah is calling us that we should be like moths, seeking to crowd around this fire. Come in all of you like moths, and andar in bahra kidarat sad bahar. For in this fire are 100 springs. That what happens in spring, right? The mother gives birth, the animals come out of hibernation, flowers blossom, the earth is tilted towards the sun, there's more sunlight, the days are longer, right? Everyone's happier in the spring. In this fire, there's 100 springs. Bong meizat dar meyani an giro, bong meizat dar meyani an giro. He was crying, that child was weeping in the fire amidst that multitude. And the souls of all the people were also weeping in that multitude. Khalq khudra badazan baykhishtan, may fikandan andar atish mardozan. After all the people, the whole city was lined up right before the fire and the idol. After hearing the speech of the child, all of the men and the women, they all lined up and started throwing themselves in the fire. After hearing what? Just the speech of this small child. Bey muwakkil bey kashash az ishq dost zaan ki shirin kardan har talkh oost. Without custodian, muwakkil is like a custodian, without like a guardian, without being dragged. They weren't being dragged into the fire. For what? As ishq dost, for love of Allah. Right? Without being forced. For the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because from Him, zaan ki shirin kardan. Because from Him, He can make every bitter thing sweet. Right? He is the musabbib al-asbab. He creates the reality and the nature and the cause and effect of everything. So this fire that might have burnt, that should have burnt you, then became sweet for them. Ta chunan shud ke an avanan khalq ra manat may kardan ka atish dar maya. Until it came to pass that the guardians of the king were actually holding back people and saying, you don't have to jump into the fire anymore. The guardians of the king said, "Ka'andar dar maya, don't enter into the fire." On Jahudi shud siyah ruh khajal, shud peshayman zain sabab baymar dil. That king, that Juhud, that repudiant became dark-faced and ashamed, and became sorry and bimar dil, and sick at heart. Ka'andar iman khalq ashiq tar shudan, dar fanai jism sadiq tar shudan. Because the people grew more loving in their iman. That when the king said that bow towards the idol or I throw you into the fire, And all of these people chose that, no, out of love of Allah, we will never bow towards an idol or throw ourselves into the fire out of love of Allah. Right? And became what? Dar fanai jism sadiq tarshudan. They were willing to sacrifice, to annihilate their whole bodies. Makr shaitan hamdar u pechid shukr. Dar ham khudra siyah ru deed shukr. Thanks to Allah that the plot of the devil caught him in its toils. Thanks be to Allah that shaitan saw himself disgrace. Anche me malid dar rugye kasan jama' shud dar chehrai an nakisan. That he was rubbing on the faces of those persons. Of that darkness of the face of that wretch, right? Of that vile wretch. Anke me darid jama' khalq chust shud daridai an u ishan durast. That he was trying to rip the clothes of the people. His own was ripped and they were unhurt. That although shaitan tried to rip the clothes of all the Muslims, what happened? They all were fine. And he we're going to read one last story, if that's okay. Do we have time or?
Yep.
Yes.
There's 50,000 lines here, so you lose your spot. I can't find it, so we'll stop there. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in overcoming the challenges of our nafs. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are not deluded in this world. That what is actually fire, we are not deluded into thinking that it is water. And what is actually a water and a cure, we're not deluded into thinking that it is a fire. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us always in the straight path. And that we are always willing and always ready to sacrifice our lives for His love. And most importantly, more than anything, that in this month may we be granted the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of the du'as of the Holy Prophet. Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbak. That, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you for your love and love of those people who love you. So two things is incredibly important. One is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those people who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is dua of the Prophet. So if at least we are not experiencing the love of Allah, at least we can experience the love of those people who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the idea of, the Sufis, they say, al-barakatu tanzilu 'inda dhikr as-salihin. That blessings descend just at the mention of the righteous, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them so much. When we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all istiqamah and sukoon in this world, the next word was sallallahu ala sayyidina wa sayyidina Muhammad wa barak wa sallam.